My name's Jill Rowe, and in this episode of The Different Podcast, I talk with Steve Chalke all about the power of trust and the need for honesty. We begin, though, with love and discuss how this is the foundation to it all. We chat about the importance of intent and motivation when honesty is at play and genuinely wanting the best for others. We owe it to people to be honest with them, whether it's at work, home, marriage, relationships, friendships. Honesty and trust really matter. We talk about the Stockdale Paradox and see that it is through being honest that we are able to become our better selves and grow trust too. We pray this episode is helpful to you. Steve.
Good evening.
Another episode.
They come around so fast, don't they?
They do.
Especially as we record them in groups.
I can't believe you've just given that secret away.
Seems like only a moment ago.
I did actually tell some people that we were recording some episodes tonight, so don't feel too bad about that.
No.
Are you doing okay?
I'm still doing okay. No, it's still hot.
Do you know what I'm excited about?
I expect. You look excited.
I am, but after the recording of this episode,
yeah,
we are going for a curry.
Oh yeah, we are.
I'm so excited.
I'm very excited. And we're taking Peter with us, who's sitting here recording all of this with his headphones on.
I know.
And he's sweating away.
Our producer.
Yeah.
And Corny.
Yeah, and Cornelia's coming in. Yeah, Corny. Well, I call her Connie sometimes.
Because that's her name.
Her mum calls her Nellie. Well, her family call her Nellie. Cornelia. Nellie.
Yeah.
And I've always called her Connie, so most people, call her Connie. You never call her Nellie, I guess.
No,
but her sister still calls her Nellie.
No. Anyway, curry. The four of us.
Okay, we're going for a curry on a very hot night. What a sensible decision that is.
We're going to see my favourite curries.
Oh, yeah.
Brilliant. Anyway, so this week I had my performance development review.
Oh, your PDR.
My PDR, which is our little process we have in Oasis, don't we? Where we all have these we get regular, there's regular line management and all that stuff. And then once a year, there is like this review moment. And it's fantastic because you can look back and you look forward and
reflect on
and you reflect and celebrate everything that's been good. And
set some goals.
Yeah, set some goals. And you also talk about the things that have been like roadblocks and frustrations and all of that kind of stuff, which is brilliant. Such a great process.
So you had a good PDR.
I always like it. I think it's a really good thing. I really do. But Dave, who we both know and love very much, he was doing my review because he's the group chief. And there's a part of the review meeting template where we talk about our enactment of the Oasis ethos values, which is part of my work and all the rest of it. But everyone has had to do this year as part of the process. And I was just reflecting on how brilliant the conversation was between Dave and I, where Dave asked me some really curious questions about why I'd chosen the particular statement that I had. And also he was really honest with me about how he thought I needed, what I needed to think about, and also what I should do to grow and be better in that area. And I came away thinking that is so healthy that you can have a conversation where you're being basically told there's some space for you to improve, Jill. But all of that can happen in a way where you're building this ever-growing foundation of trust.
Yeah. So I guess that's, knowing Dave as I do, I've known him for a long time. The trust is the key, actually, isn't it? Because if someone says to you, you can really improve a lot, Jill, and you don't trust them.
Yeah.
You're just offended or upset, or you won't listen or whatever. But it's the relationship between you and Dave that makes that discussion and that exploration possible, isn't it? It's non-threatening, it's challenging, but it's good.
Yeah. And what I realise I don't like is when people flaff around, when you know they've got something that will be so helpful.
And they don't say it.
And they won't say
Can't get it out.
They can't get it out. Or they'll go, oh, that was nice. And you know that, even you know that there was stuff that could have been worked on. So when we're thinking about this stuff, and let's imagine it's a Palace footballer, Steve, because I know now you're tuned in. I was thinking about just how important trust and honesty is to help an athlete improve. Like if a coach just kept saying, that's great, that's great, nothing really changes.
Nothing really changes. And if there's no trust in the relationship, everything falls apart, as some teams do. But no, you've got to be pushed. So I always think love isn't a soft willingness. Care isn't a soft willingness. Love really creates boundaries. And I find that, well, in all aspects of life, unless you can be clear with people, and the clarity you bring has to be built on the trust and the relationship that exists with you, which is why when people who don't know you hurl things at you, it's much harder, isn't it? Yeah. But if someone you know cares about you and somebody you know and trust says something that's challenging, you're a fool not to listen, really, aren't you?
So is there something in there, Steve? I was just, as you were talking, I was thinking, like, challenge is great, but you really need to think about what your intent is before you bring a challenge. Like, if I was to challenge you, what's my actual intent? What's my motivation in doing this?
Yeah.
Is it to help you to be better, or is it because I'm trying to score a point?
Yeah, put myself over you or whatever it might be. And that is the point, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I kind of, there have been a couple of situations I've been involved in this week where I've sat with somebody who's asked me questions about themselves, and I have to be sure that I really do want them to succeed.
Yeah.
Which I do. Do you know? Yeah. I want them to be the best they can be and get further than they can dream of. Yeah. And I want to bring whatever marginal gain that I've got that I can bring to them, what little insight, if any, I've got to them to aid them in that thing.
Yeah.
And I'll often say, well, I did this week, I said to someone, look, here's the way I see it. If it doesn't fit, don't wear it. But the way I see it is like this. I really believe that you're extraordinary.
Yeah.
What I'd bring to you is this.
Yeah.
And if they believe that you really believe in them, if I believe that somebody really believes in me, I find it much easier to deal with what they're saying, even if it's a hard thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So just because it makes us feel uncomfortable doesn't mean that it's wrong or anything.
No,
that's just part of the experience.
The uncomfortable thing is part of growing, always, isn't it?
Yeah.
To the staticness of feeling safe the whole time is unhelpful. If you don't feel uncomfortable a little bit in what you're doing, harping back to what we said in the last episode that we did so long ago, about 45 minutes ago, and unless you're a little bit out of your depth, then in actual fact, you're not growing, you're not pushing yourself forward, you're not getting further than you have been. But in order to do that, you need a good coach.
Yeah.
And someone who pushes you but believes in you. I think that we are always inhibited as Oasis when there's a lack of honesty in what goes on. And, you know, in my job, earlier today, I was sitting with someone I work with really closely, and I was saying, we owe it to the people that we work with to be very clear with them and very honest with them. We owe it to them, and we also owe it to the people they serve. Because if we don't help them, we're not helping the people they serve. It's our obligation to be kind, but to be clear.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the way we are and the way we have been will allow people to either hear us or not so.
Yeah.
So who I am, the way I am every day with these people, gives me or doesn't give me the right to speak honestly into their situation and their life.
Kindness and niceness are not the same thing, are they? Niceness is sugar coated. Yeah. Kindness is, there's a robustness and intentionality there.
I remember talking to a friend of mine, it was 2 or 3 years ago now, and one of our friends, I knew this person too, their marriage had just fallen apart. And they'd only been married a little while. Yeah. But she was telling me there was an occasion that they all sat, there's a bunch of young women, they all sat together in a pub. And they were talking about this young woman who got married, but it was some time before she got married. And she said, all of us in the circle knew that relationship couldn't work and wouldn't work. All of us in the circle knew that this was an unhealthy and was going to be an unhappy move for our friend. She was the only one in the group who didn't know that. And she said, the thing was, when we were together, or some of us were together without her, we talked freely about the fact that this was going to be a train crash, a disaster. It just couldn't, we all knew.
Yeah.
But the tragedy is that none of us had the courage to actually kindly and generously, but honestly, out of our love for her, sit with her and tell her what we really believed.
Wow. Jesus used a phrase, he talks about, let your yes be yes and your no be no. What was that all about?
Well, it was about, as far as I have always thought about it, exactly this kind of honesty. If someone asks you, that's the kind of, if Colin asks me, do I look good in this skirt?
Gosh,
it's a tricky one to negotiate that. But but I'll say to her, do you think this shirt goes with these trousers? And she's always blunt. So
she says it as she sees it.
She says it as she sees it. And it's actually really helpful.
Yeah.
So tell me that before I go out, not when I go home in the evening. So, but there you go. So I think that's what it's about. And it can only come out of a relationship again, can't it?
Absolutely.
Can't it? But I see something and I know something and I owe it to you because I love you, because I care about you, to tell you this thing.
Yeah.
To tell you this thing about how sometimes you're received, and I'm talking about me. I'm not saying here I sit dispensing all this honesty to everyone. I need to be on the receiving end of it all the time. One of the dangers in life I've found as you get older is that people fear telling you those things. Do you know, there was a very, very famous preacher that anybody who's younger than about 25, 30, probably never heard of, Billy Graham, He was like, he knew every American president there was, and he's like, it's huge. Yeah, when he would tell me he used to come to this country, went to tea with the Queen, and she loved him, and all this kind of stuff. Anyway, the funny thing is, because of a strange set of circumstances, I got to know him really quite well, and he was at the height of his fame. I got to know him because I used to make some television programs. I was asked to interview him for a TV program. And then after that, he asked me to go to some things and speak with him, a few times in different places. And the funny thing is, he was a brilliant speaker, but every now and then he'd have an off day, like a song, And the thought of me saying to Billy Graham, that wasn't one of your best. I think, you should have started with this illustration and not that one like that. But as I've got older, it seemed ridiculous to me that he didn't need my vote or my insight, But as I've got older, I've realised you always need that. If you're beyond that, and that's not a judgment on him, no. It's judgment on me. I'm sure he was a lovely guy.
Newsflash, Steve Chalke thinks that Billy Graham
could have reshaped
reshaped a few sermons.
Does that make any sense to you?
Yeah.
And I got to know him well enough now, looking back on it, to know that he was open and gracious about everything. Yeah. The other thing, he was so good at doing what he did that was intimidating. It's like. So I never even think I ever said to him, "Hey, that was great," because I used to think, like, someone that good, you didn't need me to tell him he's good. But of course, we all need to be encouraged, and we all need to have the kindness of someone who's on our side. Say, it helps me if somebody says, "Steve, you could have done it like this," or have you thought about that? You could improve by doing that. And it's always great.
Yeah.
But then you go away and analyse it.
Yeah, absolutely. And in that, what's happening in that whole interaction, in that whole dynamic, is trust is being built, isn't it?
Yes.
And you are discovering that other person who is giving you that feedback or whatever it is, you are learning that they are trustworthy. That's how I feel. Like, for people who are like that with me, I'm like, oh no, you're I can trust you because you don't shy away from speaking kindly and with clarity to me about what's true and what isn't good, and as a result of that, I feel a much stronger connection to that person because I know that what they're about is my growth, like you're saying. I know that they're about. And so the ability to have that actually is always affecting our impact, whether that's individually or as an organisation, say as Oasis or...
Indeed it is. Because you were talking about football,
easy for us to get derailed onto football.
No, really. Is that I've been told through my life several times by people highly skilled, not just in football but rugby, etc., etc. But I know this is true of any top football team. You don't play. Strangely, I remember the first time this was ever said to me. It wasn't at Palace, actually. My favourite team it was elsewhere. A manager said to me, we don't play our best players. And it's like shocking. What do you mean you don't play your best players? Like, that's doom, isn't it? You're going to lose. If you've got good players sitting on the bench or, on the books, and you don't play your best players, then he just said, we play our best team.
Yeah.
And he made the point to me, which was new to me at that time, was that your best team isn't a collection of your best players necessarily. Yeah. You hope your best players form the best team, but it's the best team. And the best team is a group who will work together, believe in one another, trust one another, and be honest with one another. Absolutely. And there has to be honesty between the coach and those players. So if you've got somebody who's a brilliant footballer but arrogant and won't listen and won't bend and won't change their game, and exactly, and won't rethink how they're playing and has to do it one way, actually they're a liability in the team.
Yeah.
You play your best team, not necessarily your best technical players. Yeah. And I suppose through the years of the development of Oasis, I was taught this lesson a long time ago. The fact that I can remember it now shows what an impact it made on me. And then I've often thought of that about Oasis. You play a team that will listen and learn together. And of course, that's always difficult because you come across characters who won't listen and won't, they won't change the shape of their game. They won't learn. Yeah. And in the end, it becomes impossible for them to be part of the team.
Yeah. Yeah. The Stockdale.
And you need the honesty to say that
to be
as
able
well.
To say that, yeah. The Stockdale Paradox, I think, is really interesting, isn't it? So it's based around Admiral Stockdale. He was awarded, the highest honour. He was imprisoned during the Vietnam War for 8 years or so. And he talked about when he survived, and he talked about holding this tension. And he was really talking about how he'd survived, about not denying the brutal facts of what he was in. So he didn't pretend it wasn't there, or, oh yeah, I'll be out by Christmas, or any of that stuff. He was absolutely clear what the reality was. And yet he had unwavering faith, unwavering hope of release, that one day it would be different. And you can, for that to be true, honesty has to sit at the heart of, that is honesty, isn't it? Brutal facts held in partnership with unwavering hope.
Yes.
That it can be different.
That it can be different. And
so creating the difference as a result.
Exactly. And hope is that thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Hope isn't a warm, fuzzy feeling that everything's going to turn out right.
Yeah.
Hope, I was saying the other week to some people, hope is a warrior spirit.
Yeah.
Hope is carved out through sheer honesty about the situation. Hope can be a very lonely thing. Yeah. It's worked out through pain. Yeah. It's the fighting spirit that says, I will go forward, and I'll go forward through honesty.
Yeah.
Hope is a very costly thing.
Yeah.
But without it, you can't go forward.
Yeah.
And you won't go forward unless you're willing to look into the darkness, the facts, the truth, and mine from that truth the way forward.
Yeah. So facts on their own are not going to help you, because you need hope. Hope on its own without facing the reality of what there is. One of the things that over the, you and I have worked together for a very long time, but there's a couple of things about trust that I've heard you say quite a lot. One is, it's like money in the bank.
Yeah.
And the second thing, and I remember this was quite early on when I started working with you, you talked about under-promising and over-delivering.
Yes, rather than the opposite.
Yeah,
a lot of people, I guess we all know that, over-promise and under-deliver. There's a great more that's said than done, in other words, isn't there? And we all live in a world where we come up against this all the time. You sit in a room or you enter into a relationship with a group and they tell you everything they're going to do, and it looks fantastic, but very little gets delivered. So don't overpromise and under-deliver. Under-promise and really deliver about it. Yeah. I was at something the other day, this week actually. It was a very posh do that I'd been invited to about education, and there were various people involved in very high-ranking places in educational research. It was all about research. So one spoke, and another one. They'd all done tons of research into education. And, education, like every area of life, the lingo's always changing because somebody writes a paper and they come up with another extraordinary phrase or phraseology, and everybody starts using that phraseology rather than the old phraseology. It's always changing, the labels for everything. It all boils down to something pretty simple in the end, but they're always changing. And then somebody gave this wonderful speech, which was filled with this intimidating language, that comes from that latest research paper. And then at the end, they said, but sometimes, they said, it's the implementation of these ideas which is so difficult. In other words,
that's so classic.
I know, it's great. It's a load of over-promising with no delivery.
A lot of verbiage.
With no delivery. And indeed, you find that very often, don't you? There's more research done than projects run.
Yeah.
By a long, long way. There are more policies out there than actual evidence on the ground of any hard graft. So, under-promise, over-deliver. And when you deliver, what tends to happen is you will find that people come to you for support, and what they want from you is the honesty that you can deliver to them out of the dust of the energy and effort and reality that you're engaged in down on the ground.
Because there's a fine, it must, I'm sure I've crossed this line a few times, but it is quite tempting, isn't it, to, in the attempt to win people, to overpromise.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is possible to do that. And in that moment, that's where trust dissipates to me.
Yeah.
Because you know yourself that that's an impossibility.
Yeah.
But this thing about trust being like money in the bank, Steve, because you've been really passionate about that.
Well, because it just helps me to think in those kind of pictures. Money is very hard to accrue in a bank, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a lot of saving up, And the funny thing about money is that it might be hard to save up, but it is very, very easy to spend very quickly indeed, and it all disappear. And I learn as a leader. Now, when I say I learn things, I mean I'm still learning them and I get them wrong. Actually, I should say that, one of the things, the statements that, that conversations, I suppose, that I find myself in very often, several times this week, in any week, people will say to me, how's Oasis going? And I always say, I've learned to say, I say in different ways, I say, well, do you want the good story or the bad one?
Yeah.
Do you want the one where it's going really, really wonderfully, or the one where it's crap, and everything's going wrong? And sometimes, if they understand life, they smile.
Struggle or the sensation.
Yeah, it's because both stories are true. That's why I say I can tell you a wonderful story, and it is absolutely true. All the great things I tell you are true. Or I can tell you a story that's full of pain and agony and failure, and it's all true. And the funny thing is, it's all happening at the same time. And it's not just happening around me, it's happening in me, because I'm not. Anyway, one of the things I've learned in my broken down old kind of way is that trust is like money in the bank. It's hard to accrue, it's easy to spend, but it's easy to save it there as well and not do anything with it and just say, oh, I'm rich.
Yeah.
So if you've got money in the bank, you should use it, and not just on yourself, on others. You will spend it, but then you need a wisdom about it. And it's like that with trust. If you've built trust with people because of what you're delivering, not just what you're promising or policy making about. And you're writing, research paper after. I mean, how many research papers more do we need about childhood or poverty? Like, honestly, they come out week after week after week, and they all tell you what you knew already.
Yes.
So there's that. You need people who deliver down on the ground, which is just a smidgen harder, as kind of. Yeah. But here's the thing: if you do that, you build trust with people, and you can lead them. But you need to know that if you're a leader, you're spending trust like you spend money in the bank. Yeah. In your honesty with people, you got to be kind, but you got to be clear and you got to be honest. Yeah. Otherwise, you don't help them. But they're listening because they trust you. Yeah. And sometimes with a people group, a small group, a people group, a group that you're leading, as you push them, because you need to push them, you're spending that trust. And a wise leader knows when they've spent all the trust that's in the bank and even got into the red. It's good to get into the red a little bit sometimes with people. And you know that they're going to go away and swear about you or not be very happy, but you know that you've done it for them. You weren't being self-centered or whatever. You've given it for them and you've risked everything for them. You've spent all the trust you had in the bank. But then you need to be able to stop and rebuild. You can't push people all the time, can you? It's great that you had an honest conversation with Dave around your PDR, but if he strode into you with another piece of honesty tomorrow and the next day and the next day, and Jill, here's another point, it becomes overwhelming. So he's built trust with you, and that's what gives him the opportunity to say something to you that might have been hard for him to say even, but you respect it because it's said and you grow from it. Yeah, exactly. So I suppose my message to myself and to anybody in a leadership position, including you, Jill, is we should never go around gloating and say, "Oh, people like me." If you're a leader, the first task isn't to be liked; it's to lead, and it's great. It's to be liked. But if you're liked and have got trust, use it, spend it, invest it.
Yeah. So building trust through honesty creates the conditions to thrive.
Indeed it does, for others. And that's what you owe them.
Brilliant. Thank you, Steve.